There's trouble in paradise over at the European Central Bank. What am I talking about? Obviously, we know that inflation is raging around the world. Here in the United States, inflation is at 8.5%. And over in Europe, it's at 7.5%. Recently, the ECB staff, they went ahead and they asked their leadership, we want higher pay raises, but that's not exactly going to happen. Here's what you need to know. Anytime that inflation is raging on and your pay raise isn't at least as high as inflation, if not more, it means you're actually getting a pay cut in purchasing power terms. And now, as that ECB staff is asking for a higher pay raise, their leadership saying no. We've got here brand new news that Christine Lagarde has shot down the idea of the ECB staff getting any sort of pay raise actually linked to inflation. If we take a look at that inflation, it's 7.5%, and it doesn't look like it's going to be stopping anytime soon. Now, if the inflation's at 7.5%, you got to ask yourself, what exactly is the pay raise for employees this year? Well, it's only about 1.5%. That means that the ECB staff is literally getting about a 6% pay cut. It's not exactly what you would want if you work at a central bank. Now, of course, the central bank employees, they're a little bit more intelligent, a little bit better well-versed in economics and purchasing power than your average employee. They understand that if inflation's at 7.5% and our raise is only 1.5%, we're actually getting paid less for doing the same work. Now, naturally, as they've made the ask to link pay raises to inflation, Christine Lagarde and the rest of the leadership team, they said, we don't want to do that. Of course they don't. Inflation's too high. She wrote in an email to the staff, and she said that she understands that the figure has disappointed many of them because of high inflation. We understand why inflation is a concern for many of you, as it is for many people outside the ECB. But of course, thoughts and prayers and understanding doesn't pay the bills. And so the ECB refusing to actually match pay raises to inflation is a big problem. Those people who are working to actually get the pay raise, they've got a unique point of view as well. We've got a quote here that states, our real salary cut has now widened to 6%. And ECB's management is asking us and all workers in Europe to take the hit for the sake of maintaining price stability. Clearly, this line of reasoning is not something that we and other European workers can accept. So naturally, what's going to end up happening here is there will continue to be a debate. I don't foresee the central bank giving people 7.5%, 8% pay raises, but I also don't see inflation going away anytime soon. And so naturally, you've got ECB staff only getting that 1.5% pay raise, and they realize they're getting paid 6% less. But it's not just central bank staff around the world. It's every single worker. If you work in an environment where there's 7.5%, 8.5% inflation, and you didn't get a 7.5% or 8.5% increase to your pay, you're also getting paid less for doing the same amount of work. This is the problem with high inflation, when pay doesn't keep up. This is a big, big problem, and we're only starting to see the cracks in the armor. The ECB staff gets it, and they're on the forefront. Imagine when everyone else starts to realize that they're actually taking pay cuts for doing the same work. High inflation's a nasty thing, and we want it to go away as soon as possible. But ultimately, employers, they're going to have to also address this. Because if you're paying people less money in purchasing power terms, eventually they have enough.